Welcome to another episode of Data Gurus. I'm Sima Vasa, your host. I'm excited to welcome my guest from Sweden, Thor Olof Philogène. He is the CEO and co-founder of Stravito. Welcome, Thor.
Thank you so much, Sima. Thank you for hosting.
Thank you. So you're based in what part are you in Stockholm?
I am based in, the Nordic capital. Some would argue Stockholm in Sweden and Scandinavia.
Yeah. There's a lot of what I've learned over the last 2 years. There's so much innovation in our space specifically that's headquartered in Stockholm. So it's quite exciting. I'm sure there's a great community of research and like-minded people there.
I think I'm quite proud to see that actually emerging, to your point. But there's also a lot of innovation in the world of AI. So it's a really good spot to be in.
Fantastic. So you have an amazing background and kind of journey to the point before you started the company. And I just would love the listeners to understand a little bit of your journey and how you got to this point, to the point of, then we'll talk about your company and the pain points we're solving. But always nice to get a little bit of background.
Sure. Well, thank you so much, Sima. I mean, in essence, you could say I started out in a fairly traditional way for business school. But quite early on, I realized that I wanted to be closer to technology. I wanted to be closer to building stuff.
Yeah.
And that led me to start my first company, a company that actually was acquired around 15 years ago. And that acquisition brought me to San Francisco. So in San Francisco, of course, got exposure to the beautiful world of technology even more. Yes. I had some amazing years there before moving back to Europe. And joining another early stage company, a fintech company, super early, where I became the leader of the commercial functions. I became the chief revenue officer. Now, that was a multi-year journey, but that eventually became a quite big company that was acquired by PayPal. And I reflect about those, say, 15 and include the 12 years and add the 8 years I've been doing Stravito.
Yeah.
Across all those years, I think it became clear that everything really depended on a couple of things. First of all, people, and the importance of getting the right people, creating an environment and culture where those same human beings can thrive. And second of all, learning from data and insights. So at the fintech company I mentioned, a big part of our success was really building a commercial engine that was deeply data-driven. So decisions were grounded in evidence and not opinions.
That I love those two things, and both are you have to focus on it in terms of the people, ensuring that they are in a safe environment to thrive, grow, fail fast, succeed. Right. So talk to me a little bit about your philosophy on people, and then I want to get to the data and insights part as well.
Yeah, I think you touched on a couple of points there, right? So I think on the people first side, I think that this is ultimately a belief, but I think that, whereas there are several combinations, you could have the money, but not the strategy, and the people, the team, you could have the strategy, but not the money, the team. Effectively, my belief is that if you have the right team, then you'll find the money and you'll kind of nail the strategy eventually, whereas just starting with the money won't necessarily get you there. So that's just like, if you had to, stack rank the importance, that's how I would put it. Yeah. And then you also touched on something, Sima, which I think is super important. There are Google made public some studies they made on this when they themselves tried to build, like, how can they build like the best organization? And it's the importance of what you touched on, which is psychological safety. And the way I try and typically talk about it is like, what it does is it unlocks capacity, because the capacity that people would have to spend and dedicate to just thinking about, where they stand in the political game, they can unlock and just focus on building something great, and doing what the business needs to become even better. So, which means that if you create an environment with great psychological safety, you eliminate more politics, and and transparency, I think, can kill silos. So it's so there's a lot there, right?
And the amount of time that people kind of cover their authenticity um, in order to play the political game. That's an energy drain versus using that
100%.
energy to, build and innovate and grow, personally as well as professionally. So I fully support that, and I think I hope more companies focus on that. Um, let's talk about data and insights. I think that I'm a person who loves data. It drives so many decisions, but there's also a place where gut instinct tends to be the norm. And so, how did data and insights manifest its importance in your journey to date?
Yeah, no, I think there's the part that kind of the observation that I have just looking back, and then there's kind of the observations that we made when founding Stravito. But if
Yeah.
I start with the form, I'd say that it became clear to me in hindsight when I look back at that first business that we built, the company I joined in the US, and then the fintech I joined in Europe, that eventually went on to be acquired by PayPal.
Right.
Throughout those journeys, I realized that the successes I had were really about me spending time on the one hand, kind of understanding, spending time, acquiring, understanding, analyzing data, and
Mm-hmm.
using that as almost, to build a
Yeah.
flywheel, to commercial flywheel or product flywheel in some cases, where you
Yeah.
effectively infuse that at the right level. So you would, effectively, and it sounds like a cliche, build a learning organization.
Yeah.
So it's,
Yeah.
but it's, I guess the core point is it needs to be part of a system. It cannot live on its own.
Yeah.
It's not, the data is not for the data team, or the insight is not for the
Right.
insights team alone.
Yeah.
You need to, it needs to be part of a system where for you to benefit from that flywheel effect.
Yeah. It's cultural, right? And
A
it's
hundred
being
percent.
curious.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to your point, Seema, I'm
Yeah.
actually really happy that you mentioned that. That was actually another insight when from one of those journeys, is just I realized that it was getting the data and kind of understanding what to do, and coming with recommendation was like not even half the job. The bigger part of the job was getting people to want to use it and to get
Right.
excited and
Yes.
feeling confident about taking that data and actually betting sometimes like very large amounts of money, to
Yeah.
and that is, to your point, very cultural. It's
Right.
cultural transformation that you need to be engaged with, apart from, of course, the foundational stuff that still needs to happen.
Yeah. Absolutely. Um, so talk to me about when you started Stravita. Um, how many years ago? I think it's almost
8 years ago. 8 years
8 years
ago.
ago. What did you see in the market that said, "Huh, there's a pain point here that we can help with"?
Yeah, no. So the interesting thing is, so I just left that fintech company I
Yeah.
mentioned. During those years, I met one of my co-founders, Sarah Lee. We worked a good 5 years together there, and we were exploring the idea of building something together. And we had just decided to join forces with two other entrepreneurs. So
Okay.
Stravito had four co-founders, Anders and Andreas, and they had just built and sold a shopper research company, currently owned by Ipsos.
Nice.
And what they had discovered, which was, I think, fascinating, was that these organizations that they would sell to, and even we were talking about Unilevers, of the
Yeah.
world, to the companies, they were commissioning enormous amounts of research, but there were actually very few employees who knew where anything was, nor how to use it.
Yeah.
and, and I think it's one of those things. I've been at many dinner table conversations when you say, it's like, do you know when you get this email and there are 20 people recipients on it? It's like, do you know where X and X file
Y-
is, etc. And most people can relate to that. If you've been
Yes.
in a big organization, you know what that is. And we discovered that, well, that was actually a massive problem. So we did some research of our own, and we realized that that was not only a very big problem, but it was actually something we could very much solve. So we
Well,
started kind of thinking about what that would be. And when we decided to found the company, our goal was quite simple at the time. So what we said was like, we need to simplify, this is what we called it, knowledge discovery. So how do we make sure that knowledge discovery at very large organizations, like Fortune 2000 sized,
Yeah.
500 sized companies, is actually a solved problem? It wasn't at the time. And and since then we've grown to serve many of the world's largest companies across sectors in both the US and North America and Europe.
That's amazing. And I love the word that you use, that you've used in our conversations, is that companies have a corpus of data.
Yes.
And give us an idea of the volume and the magnitude of data that your platform ingests to kind of provide knowledge discovery.
Oh, I mean, that's a really good question. And we do talk about it as a corpus. And I
Yeah.
think we have one big benefit. And this is like our role is a neutral role.
Yeah.
We are the Switzerland of sorts.
Yeah.
We are not a research producer.
Mhm.
And as such, what we have enabled is we can, in a very agnostic way, effectively make sure that all the relevant sources that are both internal and external
Yeah.
can actually be searched for from one single place. So trusted answers from that large company knowledge corpus can be surfaced. Now your question was like, give me a sense on how large it is, and I think it will depend.
Yeah.
And but like we have many of our clients are present in more than 100 markets, and
Right.
local markets have their own, before we arrived, would have their own silos.
Yeah.
uh, and they would have their own produced materials, and they would also buy, they would commission kind of ad hoc research, but they also have syndicated data. They would have their own dashboards. And if you think about it, like what that means is you have hundreds of markets that
Right.
produce internal stuff. You have hundreds of vendors. You have hundreds of dashboards, and all of this. These are multipliers, right? So
Right.
you effectively end up with quite a lot.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it is quite vast.
Yeah.
But we now consider that that's something we've been able to solve, quite nicely for many of our clients, and are eager to take a step forward.
Yeah. I mean, I would think that the clients that you have, again, also have a curiosity, a cultural belief that data can be part of the system. And it's really democratizing access to knowledge, right? I think a lot of times consumer insight tends to, you go there to get the answer, but not necessarily are empowered to get the answer yourself. So tell me how does that work from your perspective when you work with clients? Is it truly saying, look, we have all this data and now I want, I don't know, X number of hundred of people to have access to this knowledge?
Mm. Yeah, no, I think the goal from the very beginning was to democratize access and to make sure it wouldn't be winner for the few, but for the many, but in a way that would respect whatever governance requirements you have and whatever, secrecy requirements you have, while at the same time respecting, everything from PII data to uh, uh, all kinds of compliance and
Yes.
regulations that companies need to follow. But what I think we've really had like a customer and kind of end user first approach, and I think ever since the very first brick we kind of used to build the Stravito house, if you will,
Right.
had a used, that's from the very, very beginning. And we had the bar extremely high on end user experience.
Okay.
Because like when you start talking about kind of making available to a lot of people, then
Yeah.
you also, I mean, we are in attention. I mean, attention like it's a currency that's scarcely available right now. People don't
Totally
have
agree. Yes.
people are time starved and, kind of poor in attention, poor in. So those are tools we've used to
Mhm.
make it more accessible. And I think we believe that it's ultimately about reducing the friction on the end user side, whether it's, how you design that user experience, but also how you apply AI to
Right.
simplify for that end users. And what we've been able to do is to go from just hosting and serving that data to become what we call like an insights intelligence platforms.
Mhm.
And if we go back to I mean, you used the word corpus before, and yes, we do sit on the company's trusted knowledge corpus.
Yeah.
Yes, crucial. And no, we're not conducting any research. But the fact that we can aggregate internal and external sources, whether it's Euromonitor, Mintel, or whatever it might be, that neutrality really matters, because it means that whoever is using it feels
Yeah.
that actually take their insights-led decisions with greater confidence.
Mm. I'm curious. There's a vast amount of data that the platform holds. There's a question or a query that you go into the platform
Mm,
and you want to get answers. How do you prioritize what fuels the answers, right? If you have multiple
mm,
studies might be targeting the same questions or they're tangential to the
mm,
topic of interest, how does the system
mm,
prioritize and produce the results for the end user?
mm. I think there are two parts to answer your
Okay.
question, which is like, how do we know what to surface when
Yes.
somebody asks something? Right? So
Better way of
that's how
saying
I
it.
see.
Yeah.
So, I think we need to start with kind of our AI stance, because
Okay.
everybody on AI, and AI is the big thing, and it
Yeah.
drives
Yeah.
markets. Some people about it's overvalued, undervalued. There's no consensus.
Right.
However, our viewpoint is that the solution is AI plus human expertise.
Okay.
So humans cannot be removed. And I think,
Yeah.
and the reason I'm saying so is like we actually have insights experts in house.
Okay.
We make when we build technology, we do
Yeah.
it from the vantage. We know who we're serving, and we know what they care about, and we can
Right.
actually mold technology to take that into consideration. So when
Okay.
we build what was originally kind of like the natural language processing systems, and when we surface, when we surface, when we do what you call source selection on
Yeah.
what is it that you utilize kind of in our AI assistant,
Sure.
all of that has been informed by industry expertise,
Okay.
by human beings that actually understand. So whereas, I'm sure there are a ton of great AI systems out there that are everything for everyone, we are
Right.
not.
Right.
We're very
Yes.
focused.
Yeah.
And it's that expertise that allows us to build something that gradually becomes better at surfacing what you care about, but we also give you the opportunity of understanding what we surface. So
Right.
you alluded to our AI assistant,
Yeah.
which is really what kind of our users utilize, and with that, teams can ask strategic questions,
Mm.
and our AI assistant will answer, relevant, verified insights with reference materials. You'll see
Right.
exactly where it comes from, and you can see where those sources are. But that's the
Yeah.
short answer, the
And,
non-technical answer.
so does that mean that your teams work really closely with clients to ensure that the way that you kind of not process, prioritize data and insights is in sync with how the client would see it as well?
Definitely. I mean, it's there. There is definitely. Uh, so I've so far I've only talked about the traceability. So where
Yeah.
does the answer come from? But
Yeah.
like I think what you're alluding to is like how does that manifest? In terms of your cooperation with the different companies you serve.
Yeah.
One of the many things we do when we onboard a client is we learn about their internal vocabulary. We effectively learn, because like if you might be at say a consumer packaged good company, or consumer electronics company, you might have your own internal lingo. You might
Right.
have acronyms that designate certain products. You might and then maybe you're big on kind of oncology studies, if like you're a pharmaceutical company, etc. We make sure to that whatever system we bring to the customer
Yeah.
actually has the relevant knowledge, like embedded, populated. And
Yes.
some of it is done like, really us spending time understanding what is it that's real for this
Right.
company. So I would say that there's, at this level, I would say, of companies we serve, meaning Fortune 500 sized companies, that's an expectation. There
Right.
needs to be some level of
Yes.
system. The system needs to adapt
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
reality to some degree. And that's something we do.
And it seems like once you're embedded in an organization, it's very difficult to switch, because there's such a huge investment in making sure that there's alignment in the vocabulary, in the prioritization of sources that fuel the answers. It's almost like a consultative engagement uh,
Mm.
that could, you know, spawn for many years, if you will.
That might be true, Sima, but
Yeah.
like, some wise human beings said like only the paranoid survive. So I think it has, I don't really see it that way.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
honestly, we really need to, our clients expect us to be ahead of the curve. They
Yeah.
expect us to see where the puck is,
Yeah.
figuratively going.
Yes.
And so we need to be several steps ahead
Uh,
and effectively anticipate. So I don't really think that we can in any way
yes.
relax and just benefit from, that level of, because honestly, it doesn't matter. We need to be several steps ahead
Yeah.
to earn their trust over time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I
I
didn't.
wouldn't say that we
Yeah.
see it that way.
I wanted to clarify. I guess the point is, when a client brings you guys on, it is a huge investment of time and effort to make sure that it serves the organization. And
Mm,
obviously, you have to keep up with the innovation cycle and keep up with meeting client needs. But this is not a plug and play. Here, buy a license, see you later.
mm.
That's the distinction I was trying
Yeah,
to make there.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think, we've become much better over time at kind of onboarding clients. It's
Yes.
something we've done hundreds of times. So it's something we feel very confident because I think the reality is whoever we bring on, they actually have full-time jobs. This
Yes.
is
Yeah.
like, this is, so,
Mhm.
they are not interested in something that gives them a second full-time job, right?
Yep.
So it's like
Yeah.
it's our job to really make that transition super smooth. And
Mm.
I think I'm actually quite proud of like what the type of responses we get and the type of level of feedback we get from how smooth that is. And
Yeah.
many of our clients are surprised, to see that it's something, because we've done it so many times and because
Yeah.
we have ourselves a very strong customer centric approach, we're actually quite good at it.
Yeah.
But to your point, it definitely requires effort.
Yeah. Yeah. You have a strong playbook, it sounds like, to onboard clients. Well, you kind of need to, right? In terms of to be able to sell to multiple large companies. So let's switch gears a little bit. I know everybody is always concerned about the customer relationship.
Mm, mm,
And, you're working with these large data sets that clients have purchased, um, or commissioned research studies, either syndicated tracking, ad hoc studies. And all of a sudden now we have this middle layer that's kind
mm,
of taking and ingesting the data and in some ways owning the customer relationship. Um,
mm,
how, how do, how, how's that relationship work, in
mm,
terms, Nielsen's, or any
mm,
of these
mm.
companies that provide data to clients.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair question, right? So, and I, the way I tend to think about it is like as having spoken about neutrality, we don't
Yeah.
compete with
Yes.
providers, but if anything, and this is something we are clearly seeing in the numbers,
Yeah.
we actually increase utilization of their work.
Yep.
So when companies lean in,
Mm.
research actually gets used more
Right. Yeah.
because suddenly it's the tip, it's like it's accessible,
Yes.
it's embedded. You don't need to go to 10 different web pages to
Right.
ask the same query. And that typically, leads to repurchase and leads
Uh-huh.
to deep partnerships. And in many cases, we actually, the data that we host will be embedded in other places, right?
Mm.
Because, so for instance, some of our clients have their own, internal tooling, so we don't necessarily we're not trying to be at a certain point
Mm.
kind of in the user experience. We're really trying to reduce the amount of friction the end user needs to go through to do what they need to do, right? Because ultimately they have responsibilities and they need to use multiple data sources to
Yeah.
address those responsibilities.
Do you report on data usage back to the companies that are, yeah, I missed that one. That's really, really helpful in terms of the value you provide to even the companies where the research is commissioned.
Mm.
Very powerful. And you have objective data then to say your data is actually being used a lot more and it's increasing
We,
over time.
I mean, we've actually had this discussion with some of our partners, and when
Yeah,
we've looked at it, we've been able to highlight, take a look at it. Well, this is what we're seeing, and the trend
yeah,
is quite clear. Way to think about it is, I mean, if we in any given day will have, thousands of queries being asked,
yeah,
and you really want to make sure that if you as a research provider sit on data that is relevant to any of those
yeah,
queries, you can
yeah.
make sure to these queries, right?
Right,
That's
right.
that's
Yes. Yeah,
and you can either choose to be part of it or not.
yeah,
And what when we've looked at it, we've seen that it's not only something I say, it's something
yeah.
we've actually seen happen when data integrations become complete or not.
Yes. It's analogous to not exactly, but I know a lot of companies are trying to figure out. In the beginning, they were trying to figure out how do I increase my Google search metrics, and now they're
Yeah.
saying how do I increase my visibility in ChatGPT or any other LLM because I need to be relevant. I mean, you guys are in a private ecosystem, but still,
Mm,
it's like I want to make sure if I'm a data provider that I'm relevant and I'm where I need to be in terms of utilization for the questions
mm.
that are being asked. That's it.
Yeah, and I think I mean, whether it's research provider or Stravito,
Yeah.
I think we all have a duty to try and provide our customers more value over
Yes.
time, which means that like gradually as time passes, the service needs to become more valuable. And
Yeah.
that's true for us. It's true
Right.
for me.
Yes.
Nobody's escaping it.
Yeah. Sure. All right, so that's a good way to segue into the future. Technology is moving so rapidly. As you know, you guys are working on um, different features,
Mm,
leveraging AI. Where do you see the future of your platform and your solutions going as
mm,
technology continues to accelerate?
mm. Yeah, well, I actually think the future started a while back ago. So,
There.
yeah. So,
That's a nice.
the
That's
way,
actually a really nice phrase. I thought the future started a long time ago. Good one.
yeah, but if I kind of repeat some of the things I said, I mean, what we
Sure.
do is we're in the business of building AI that is
Yeah.
purpose,
Yeah.
and we're in the business of doing so in a way that combines it with human expertise, which is where we benefit from having folks that have come from the
Yeah.
industry. Now, this year we launched AI personas,
Yeah.
and what that does is it really addresses the question of relevance. Now,
Mm.
when we take a look at our, the many companies we're fortunate to serve, many of them already have segmentation studies, and
Yeah.
often each of those studies will be hundreds of pages of long. And if you think about the world of before, in order to
Yeah.
apply it, you required kind of some skill in memorization.
Yeah.
So, so the way
So
to
true.
think of Stravito's AI personas is that they are built from those individuals' brand segmentation studies that
Okay.
allow them to simulate consumer perspectives. And
Got it.
what that simulation means that anyone using Stravito's AI personas can
Oh,
stress test product ideas,
yeah.
campaign ideas, strategy ideas in real time.
Mm.
So the way to think about the actual software is like we bring those personas to life in an interactive interface. You
Uh-huh.
can ask them questions, you can get answers that are grounded in real data. So
Yeah.
it's not ChatGPT
Right.
open internet data.
Yes.
And you get source references, you have traceability, so you see where it comes from. And for example, with Lavazza, the coffee brand,
Yeah.
we published a case study, came out in Ad Age. What in their case, they had perspectives and answers that were condensed perspectives that I think were based on thousands of survey respondents with full
Okay.
traceability back to the source. And that's quite exciting, so
Mhm.
you give end users the ability to convert static documents into
Yeah.
real-time interactive conversations without being a black box. So
Right.
it's trust the source, you actually see where it comes from. And as an end user, you benefit from much earlier warning, much earlier stress testing to help you evaluate ideas before you commit to what you still need to do, which is like some level of, many times, many cases, expensive primary research.
Well, it's
Now,
all
since we're talking about the future, I just want to go a bit further.
sure.
AI personas is the first of several agentic AI capabilities we're building.
Okay.
Now, our general goal is how can we help the companies we serve to make smarter bets and identify growth opportunities?
Mhm.
This is ultimately, and I'm saying this because I've hosted our own kind of consumer insights podcast. I've had multiple conversations with insights leaders. This is about helping insights leaders earning a bigger seat at the table and helping them drive top line growth for the companies where they work. That's what it's about.
I love it. I love it. I almost can see these personas coming to life in a boardroom, right? In terms of really bringing the voice of the customer fully front and center as it relates to driving
100%.
strategy and making decisions.
I think there are some great companies, I think many of you will know them, that have either kind of empty chairs at kind of the boardroom, or they have token representation of their customers. What if that chair would talk? That's a quite powerful
That's right.
thing.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I don't doubt that that's going to happen one day.
It's happening.
It's happening. Let's switch gears, Thor. You've done a lot of cool things in your career, and we have lots of listeners that are in the beginning stages of their journey. You have people who are contemplating if they should be entrepreneurs or not. What kind of key pieces of advice, or what's kind of the one thing that you keep central as you lead your team and grow the business? Are there, and it might go back to the people and the data and insights, but are there other kind of softer things that you think about as it relates to leadership?
Well, I think I'll get back to leadership, but I think there's one that I think you and I talked about, although casually, but I think there's something that is true for, so for context, I've lived through several technology shifts. I've been part as an entrepreneur in kind of Web 2.0, social media. I've seen metaverse and crypto from very close. But I believe that from our vantage point, this is assuming that people that listen to you, Sima, have like an affinity for insights and an affinity for data. I think that what we're seeing now is actually bigger for us.
Okay.
And the reason why is like the best insights and data professionals are great at asking the right questions.
Yes.
That's kind of what differs the good from the great.
Yeah.
They're not order takers. They challenge us. And the beauty of kind of this technology shift is that LLMs, or kind of large language models, they reward exactly that skill.
That's true.
The better the context, the better the question, the better the output. So in that sense, I think so kind of data professionals, insights teams, we've been training and preparing for this moment our entire career.
Yeah.
And it's game changing.
Yeah.
So I think we need to lean in.
That's so true. That's such a, I took for granted actually that everyone is curious. That's not necessarily the case. It's you refine it over time if you're not as curious as another person, but those questions really drive the results that you're trying to get to through all these technologies.
But I want to go back to your leadership question, because I didn't fully answer it. But I think leadership always comes back to people, in my view. The right people can fix strategy and money problems, and the wrong people can't. So and I think my approach and our approach has been to focus heavily on psychological safety, on transparency. When people don't have to watch their backs, you can really unlock their full capacity. Transparency removes politics. If you don't want silos or games, leadership need to model that behavior. And then lastly, on AI specifically, I really think it's a moment for senior leaders in our kind of area of the world to step up.
Yeah.
And I think you and I talked about this, but like there are studies that confirm this, that this is not something that we can delegate. This is where kind of experience, judgment, and guardrails matter. And so yeah, it's really that opportunity.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. And I think that sometimes we undervalue all those experiences, regardless of what technology shift is happening, to say, oh, I don't know that as well. I'll get some young person to deal with it. And I'm going to just not necessarily use the same critical principles of leadership and kind of creating parameters that we've used in the past. It's no different. Probably a little bit more learning on our part, but it's something that's quite exciting in my mind in terms of the next shift in our industry. Thor, thank you so much for joining me. I thoroughly have enjoyed our conversation. Look forward to keeping in touch. And when you're stateside, please do let me know.
I look forward to it. I was actually thinking about that very same thing. Thank you so much for having me, Sima. Really appreciate it.
Take care. Thank you.